Mister Seahorse by Eric Carle. Mr. and Mrs. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea. Mrs. Seahorse began to wiggle and twist this way and that. "It's time for me to lay my eggs," she said. "Can I help?" asked Mr. Seahorse. "Oh, yes, thank you," said Mrs. Seahorse, and she laid her eggs into a pouch on Mr. Seahorse's belly. "I'll take good care of our eggs," said Mr. Seahorse. "I promise." As Mr. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea, he passed right by a group of trumpet fish hidden in a patch of reeds. Let's see where the trumpet fish are. There they are. Wow, there's the trumpet fish. But before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. "How are you, Mr. Stickleback?" asked Mr. Seahorse. "Delighted," replied Mr. Stickleback. "I just built a nest, and right away Mrs. Stickleback laid her eggs into it. Now I am taking good care of them until they hatch. Keep up the good work."
Where's the baby?
The babies are in the daddy's belly. "Keep up the good work," said Mr. Seahorse, and swam on his way. As Mr. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea, he passed right by a lionfish hidden behind a coral reef. There's the lionfish. He was hiding. There he is. But before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. "How are you, Mr. Tilapia?" asked Mr. Seahorse. Mr. Tilapia couldn't answer. His mouth was full of eggs. I know," said Mr. Seahorse. "Mrs. Tilapia laid her eggs. Now you are taking good care of them until they hatch." Mr. Tilapia nodded his head. "You must be very happy," said Mr. Seahorse, and swam on his way. As Mr. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea, he passed right by several leaf fish hidden among the seaweed. Let's see where they are. There they are. There's those leaf fish.
There's the weed.
Yeah, that's the seaweed. Yeah, there's the seaweed. And then there's the leaf fish.
Wow.
Yeah, they're hiding. But before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. "How are you, Mr. Curtis?" asked Mr. Seahorse. "Perfectly fine," replied Mr. Curtis. "Mrs. Curtis laid her eggs, and
Where's the baby?
They're in his belly.
Dad, where's the babies?
"I have stuck them on my head. Now I am taking good care of them until they hatch." "You are doing a good job," said Mr. Seahorse, and swam on his way. As Mr. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea, he passed right by a stonefish hidden behind a rock. There's that stonefish. Did you see him? He's hiding. Where is he? There he is. It's a stonefish.
It's itchy.
Yeah.
You can't talk here. It's itchy.
Oh. But before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. "How are you, Mr. Pipe?" asked Mr. Seahorse. "Couldn't be better," replied Mr. Pipe. "Mrs. Pipe laid her eggs along my belly. Now I am taking good care of them until they hatch. You should feel proud of yourself," said Mr. Seahorse, and swam on his way. See the little eggs on his belly? There they are. But before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. "How are you, Mr. Bullhead?" asked Mister Seahorse.
They're squishing up.
They are. Tip-top, replied Mr. Bullhead. Mrs. Bullhead laid her eggs, and the eggs hatched. Now I'm babysitting. You are doing a fine job, said Mister Seahorse.
The eggs.
Let's see where they are. And swam on his way.
Where they are.
Let's see. The time had come.
The baby.
That's right. For the seahorse babies to be born. Mr. Seahorse wiggled.
Look at the babies.
I know, look at them all. He wiggled and twisted this way and that. At last, the babies tumbled from Mr. Seahorse's pouch. They're so cute.
There's more, there's more.
That's right, they're coming out of the pouch. And they swam away. Now one baby turned around and tried to come back into the pouch. Oh no, said Mr. Seahorse. I do love you, but now you are ready to be on your own. The end.
Look at the baby.
Yeah, they're baby seahorses. They're so cute.
What's this?
That's the author and the illustrator. Yeah, he wrote the book and he illustrated it. He drew the pictures.
The pictures.
Yeah, that's the jacket to the cover.
This is the jacket.
That's the jacket. All right, what do you say?
The naked.
Go look.
The naked.
Say thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.